Hi, I'm Angela Bandich. I'm an attorney at Crowley Corporate Legal Strategy. Today I'm going to talk to you about a buy-sell agreement amongst founders of a company. So first thing, if you have a corporation, you would have a separate document amongst all of the founders and it would be called a buy-sell agreement. If you have a limited liability company, an LLC, the buy-sell terms would be included in the company's operating agreement amongst the members of the LLC. So when I refer to the buy-sell agreement, it could either be a separate agreement for the corporation or it would be the terms included in the operating agreement for the LLC. So what does a buy-sell agreement do? It basically addresses the life events or the different situations that can arise in the founders' lives that can trigger an offer of that founders' shares or membership units, if it's an LLC, to the other founders. So how does this work? If there are different situations like a founder dies, a founder is disabled, or there is a retirement or other life event, or even a bad act. So let's say one of the founders commits fraud. You can fire that founder as an employee, but they would still hold their shares and still be associated with the company. So most of the situations where if there's a fraud or bad act involved in the founders, work with the company or even outside of the company in their personal time, you want to disassociate your company with that founder completely. So you want them out as an employee and you want them out as a shareholder. So the buy-sell agreement would identify what happens in those situations. Also, if a founder just wants to sell their shares, how does that work? So generally there's a right of first refusal in the buy-sell agreement. So that basically means if there is a third party who wants to buy a founder's shares, the founder is obligated under the right of first refusal to bring that offer to the rest of the founders in order for them to review it and decide if they want to actually intercept that offer and buy your shares on those same terms. So now they will own your shares and the third party is left out. There could be a situation where the other founders actually don't mind that third party being their new shareholder. So they might say, we don't want to buy your shares. You're more than welcome to go to that third party and sell your shares to them. We'd love to have them as our new founder, our new co-founder, our new shareholder as part of our group. The right of first refusal is something that requires you to go to those other members, those other shareholders, and let them know, hey, I have this offer. You have a specific period of time, usually it can be a week, 2 weeks, to say yay or nay. If they say nay, you're free to do what you want. It usually entails a written notice to the other shareholders and letting them know what the terms are. And if they do accept it, they have to accept those exact terms. So in other situations where there's some sort of life event and something happens to actually trigger an offer of your shares to the other shareholders, there can be a conversation about what those shares are worth. So generally we use fair market value. In the situation where you have a third party who is willing to buy your shares, whatever that third party is willing to pay, that's ultimately what the value of those shares is. They will offer you, let's say, $50,000. That's how much those shares are worth because you have the offer on the table from that third party. If there's a situation where there's no third party and you want to sell your shares or one of those life events happens, then you and the other founders may disagree on what the value of those shares are. You may think that they're worth $50,000 and the other shareholders may think they're only worth $10,000 because they only want to pay you $10,000. So how do you figure that out? You have to get an independent valuation of the company and the shares and understanding that whatever that third party valuation firm decides is the value of the shares will be ultimately what they're worth and what you can sell them for. Those valuations can become very expensive if there's a lot of disagreement. Sometimes there's multiple valuation firms that are involved and there's ranges and it can get complicated. So the message there is to try to negotiate and understand that if you if you do want to argue and get into disagreements about how much the shares are worth and the value of the shares in the company, that could become expensive. And if you're only talking the difference between $10,000 and $50,000, it may not be worth it to spend all of this money to get multiple opinions and that sort of thing. But if you're talking about millions and millions of dollars, if your company is that successful, it may be worth it to get the valuation if you're talking between $1 million and $5 million. So there are situations like transferring a shareholder's shares to the shareholder's personal trust for family planning and estate planning purposes. Those types of transfers are usually excluded from a buy-sell agreement because you don't want a transfer to a trust to be a trigger event to actually cause that shareholder to have to sell his shares to the other founders. So there are ways that you can carve out specific situations depending on the founders and what they're comfortable with in order to cover not all life events, because there's no way we can anticipate everything, but we can cover a lot of the life events that we've seen here at our firm come up between co-founders and try to address what happens in those situations. Thanks.